the odds. In 10 years, Ron Jaworski broke every significant passing record for the Philadelphia Eagles. But one year stood out above the rest. Not the Eagles' Super Bowl season, but 1985. It was a benchmark season for Jaworski when he overcame personal failure and injury to enjoy great success. That was the year when the career of Ron Jaworski came full circle. He overcame both serious injury and a benching to regain his starting role. Jaworski's comeback did not command national attention, but his sense of loyalty, sportsmanship, and dedication made him a local hero.
Throughout his 13-year NFL career, Ron Jaworski has been buoyed by a stubborn sense of optimism and a childlike enthusiasm for the game. These qualities, plus a strong right arm, helped turn a losing Eagle franchise into a powerful playoff contender in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Philadelphia fans, however, have not always been eager to connect their team's success with this tough competitor from the steel mill town of Lackawanna, New York. Yet Ron Jaworski has always managed to answer the jeers the same way he has answered the cheers. And from September of 1977 through November of 1984, he started in every Eagle game, playing each one of those 116 contests as if they were all Super Bowls.
I've always been totally optimistic. You know, when I come to training camp, you know, whenever I see the media, the press, hey, you know, where's the Super Bowl this year? We're going to be there. I mean, that's always my attitude. And it's not a front. It's not something I put on. I believe that. And I'm the believer in psycho-cybernetics. You got to envision all the great things happening, and you got to make them happen.
But on November 25th, 1984, Ron Jaworski's eternal optimism could not prevent a heavy Cardinal pass rush from severely fracturing his leg.
You know, maybe the football mentality took over. I thought, you know, maybe it's just a bad sprain. Maybe I'll be all right, you know. And they took me in the x-ray room, and they cut my shoe off and cut my tape off. My ankle kind of went, Troop. I figured, well, that's it for me. You know, it was really the first time in like 8 seasons where I knew that I was out for a while. Looking down the road of the rehab that was going to take place, I just wanted to be sure that I wanted to go through it. You know, at that point, I was 33 years old, had you know, a good career, and I wanted to consult my wife and talk about it and see if she was willing to, you know, take the step that I knew I had to take, because it was going to be 4 months of, you know, I'll probably be a little bit grumpy at times because, you know, the days were long down here at the stadium. But I had some thoughts then, but once I decided I was going to come back, you know, it was, you know, full bore ahead.
Ron Jaworski returned to the Eagle lineup on opening day 1985. But on that afternoon in the Meadowlands, Jaworski was dealt a setback that was in some ways more damaging than his leg injury of a year before. After being the sacrificial lamb in the Giants' 21-0 slaughter of the Eagles, Jaworski was made the scapegoat for his team's overall ineffective play. For the first time in his Eagle career, he was benched in favor of Randall Cunningham, a raw rookie quarterback.
All the guys that knew him or have been around him for years suddenly saw him out of the mainstream in the offense. And I think it hurt him, but he held his honor well. He didn't let the other players know how deeply he was hurt.
I didn't think it was right, and I still don't think it's right, and I've said it 1,000 times, and I don't care what anyone says. I don't think it was the right move, but then again, that's not my, you know, it's not my decision. I'm a player. There are coaches and management people that make those decisions, and I live with them and try to make the best of any situation that I'm put into. And I just thought, hey, I'm going to maintain my cool and, you know, show some class. And, you know, I think through my years, I've seen so many guys make idiots of themselves by saying things off the top of their head and not really meaning them, and end up apologizing and really, you know, coming out looking worse than the situation really was. And I just didn't want to do that.
What Jaworski did do was support and encourage the young man who replaced him.
I was put in there, and Ron was helping me out as much as he could, and he told me, he came up to me and he says, hey, regardless to what happens, I'm always behind you.
The Eagles, though, continued to stumble further down in the standings as Cunningham learned the hard way how to be an NFL quarterback. They dropped 3 of their next 4 games, including a loss in New Orleans, when only a subtle second-half switch of quarterbacks averted a Saint blowout and possibly corrected a mistake.
He came in as if he hadn't missed a beat. and he came in and he completed, I think, his first 4 or 5 passes. And I guess the pass that I was most impressed with was the first touchdown pass the Eagles scored. Now, the Eagles had problems scoring touchdowns. Spagnuolo ran a little hook pattern over the middle right along the hash mark, and there were 2 linebackers in there, and Jaworski just gunned the ball, and you see the 2 linebackers up in the broadcast booth. We couldn't tell if it got through or not. I mean, he gunned it in there, and I just had a feeling that something good was going to happen, and Ron just had a really fantastic 4 or 5 games after that.
With Jaworski back at the helm, the Eagles went on to win 5 out of 6 games, including a victory over Dallas. A remarkable transformation was taking place. A season seemed to be turning around. So, too, were the fans' affections for Jaworski.
It seemed like all of a sudden, for the first time that I could ever remember playing with the Eagles, when he was introduced before the game, I actually heard cheers over the boos. I think the Philadelphia fans are much more appreciative of Ron Jaworski than they were last year, even in the playoff years.
Ironically, what Philadelphia fans were now so appreciative of were really the same competitive instincts that had always been part of Ron Jaworski's nature.
I've heard that statement from a lot of the media. I came back with renewed enthusiasm, Jaws 2, and all this other stuff. That's a bunch of garbage. You know, I came to training camp with that attitude, you know, because coming back from the injury, I came back feeling super. But I was no different than I was opening day up in New York.
Coming back from an injury, coming back from being benched, coming back with a very, very young football team. I mean, sometimes I got the feeling that Ron was, you know, if they had dirt on the field, he'd be drawing the dirt, the plays in the dirt. Instead, he's marking plays on the AstroTurf. But I would have to think that this is the year he had the most adversity to overcome, physical as well as emotional, as well as mental. And I would think that that has to be the year he really put it together. And I think he had a successful season coming back.
In the end, the Eagles did not avoid a losing season, but their starting quarterback saga was a victory for those who believe in sportsmanship and teamwork, a triumph that earned Ron Jaworski the NFL Films Comeback Player of the Year.
3-0 game ran.
More than just an apparel store, Sportsland has the widest and wildest variety of licensed sports merchandise. Whether you root for the home team or visitors, you'll most likely find that special